Welcome to the Storytellers Sunday Online. Now, first, I just wanted to share, how the idea of this event came to be. It was last Friday when we had our first in-person moved to online meeting here in Prague, the Czech Republic. We did the meeting of Toastmasters Legends Academy online. And it was on Friday evening, and one day before, the Czech government have issued this state of emergency, which meant that basically all events were canceled, that people were supposed to stay home as much as possible. Now, so we did this event online, and we actually had quite a lot of fun during Toastmaster meeting itself. But what surprised me, that we had even more fun after the meeting, when people hanged on in Zoom, and they started, talking about different things, and they started even sharing stories. And Alena, one of our speakers today, when we ended that, said that, well, that meeting really made her day, because after, and Alena is a really super social person, that after 2 days being home alone without meeting people, this really, gave her some boost of positivity and optimism. So I thought, wow, maybe it would be useful to do this event like for more people, especially if this situation is going to last maybe for a couple of days or weeks more. So I was thinking, what would it be that we could do? And I remember that Zain, one of our other speakers today, when he was living in Wrocław, he was organizing the storytelling nights, events when people would come to tell stories. And so I thought, okay, maybe we could do this online. So I messaged Zain, and we had a quick call. And he explained to me how this works, and it was actually quite simple. The idea was, okay, you got a couple of featured speakers, and each of them shares a 7-minute story. And then you open the floor for open mic, so basically anyone can tell the story. And this way, well, people will be able to share stories on specific topics. So I thought, this is great. Maybe we could do this for all Toastmasters in Prague. And, then of course I realized once we're doing it online, why limiting it just to Toastmasters from Prague. So I wrote a couple of messages to a couple of my friends who I thought would be great speakers. And luckily, most of them said yes, that they would love to speak. And that's why we have such a strong lineup here today. So I think we have really something to look forward to. Now, just a couple of words about the purpose of this whole event. The storytelling nights, how they were done in Wrocław, were inspired by the Moth. Maybe some of you know that it's a storytelling event that takes place in various cities. And what I really like, it's not just an event, but it's actually an organization that teaches storytelling to children at universities and to public in general. And I really like their values, which they're sharing on their website. I picked 2 of them that I wanted to share with you. And that's, let me read it out for you. We believe that listening to stories can widen our perspective and help us realize what we have in common. And we believe that the community is strengthened when its members share stories with one another. I think that's exactly what we need right now in this COVID-19 situation. I think the silver lining is that, it's something that we're doing all together because we feel that we're in this together. But I think, we're in this together when it comes to the whole human life or human experience, living the human life. And I hope that the evening today will help us feel that and understand that. So a couple of housekeeping rules. Everybody will be muted except for the speaker. Jenny will take care of that. In case you have any difficulties or challenges, please write a message to the chat. Jenny will take care of that also. For maximum enjoyment, try to use the gallery view in Zoom. You can see it on the top right corner. There are the settings, and gallery view allows you to see all the faces or many faces at once. And I think with that, let me invite you to take your quarantine snacks and maybe something good to drink. Relax, make yourself very comfortable, and listen to our first speaker. I will introduce the first speaker. I'm just giving a hint to Jenny, that Jenny, you can unmute Jack now. And right, let me introduce our first speaker. So the last time I met Jack in person was in Madrid, when I went there to visit a workshop of Florian, where Florian Mück. He was actually quite surprised that I appeared in Madrid to see his workshop. And a couple of words about Jack. He's an interesting guy. 10 years ago, one of Jack's clients called him a poet in a business suit. And 5 years ago, he lost the suit. He graduated in Syracuse University in magazine writing and editing. And then he moved to Barcelona with a one-way ticket, and you blame it on a woman. And his career took all sorts of turns, and now he circled back to writing. And right now he's working on a fictional thriller due out in the fall. So there's going to be a book coming from Jack this fall. He won't tell us what the story is about, but he guarantees there will be sex and love and rock and roll. With the title, Use Me, Baby, Use Me, help me welcome our first storyteller of the night, Jack Vincent.
Thank you, Lukas. Use me, baby, use me. It was a perfect Sunday morning in early June. I was making the muesli and putting my heart into it. She was setting the table out on her balcony terrace and making the cappuccino. But I sensed that she wasn't putting her heart into the cappuccino like previous Sunday mornings. She had been a bit quiet on Saturday night, and after her quick kiss goodnight, I'm really tired, let's get some sleep, her silence this morning was speaking volumes. Now, I can handle no dessert and good night, but it wasn't like we were living together. It wasn't like there were any, shall I say, events in the way. And it was like we hadn't seen each other in a week. So yeah, something didn't feel right. Now, a few months earlier, I had become a single man, and I was ready to make up for lost ground. Hey, I make no apologies about that. Caveman ready to go into the valley, leave the cave. And a lady friend had told me, oh man, you gotta check out Internations in Zurich. It's just what you need right now. And it was. I walked into the Hotel Eden Lounge and got my name badge and had that nervous moment, So I went to the bar and I grabbed a glass of champagne and I turned around, nervous, and there she was. I'll call her today, I'll call her Ellie. Stunning. And there I was, new at this. It had been 17 years since I had been out in that dating marketplace. Now, I had blogged and even given workshops on how to work a room, business networking. And right now, I knew it was my only hope. And she looked as nervous as I. So I said what I soon discovered to be the best pickup line in the history of the human race. Hi. And I smiled. And I couldn't believe what she said back. Hi. The next thing I knew, she was laughing at my jokes, big, loud, genuine laugh. And I have a weakness for big, loud, genuine laughs and pretty eyes. And yeah. So about 20 minutes later, I scanned the room a little bit, caveman, keeping his eyes on the other cavemen. But, even in business, don't be clingy. Yeah, best practice. So I suddenly opened the door for these men to kind of join us. Yeah, they kind of wanted to join her, but I was there. And after a minute of them taking over the conversation, I said to Ellie, I think we both want to mingle. She touched my elbow and said the magic words. Don't leave without letting me know, okay? Promise? Promise. This was looking good. Well, the promise turned into a drink near her office early the following week. The drink near her office turned into her cooking for me Saturday night. And the cooking turned into dessert. Yeah, dessert. And so it went for a few months. Lots of cooking on Saturday nights and desserts. And sometimes we went out for sushi or Moroccan or whatever, but there was always dessert at her place. But not that Saturday night in June. Something had changed. And her cappuccino didn't have that Sunday brunch after dessert touch either. And so I took my muesli out to her terrace and I sat down at the table on her terrace and got on with Sunday brunch. And it kind of went like this. Raspberries? Yeah, sure. Honey? Yeah, of course. You know you're not the man for me. That's not your normal honey from the Black Forest. What was the name of that honey again? You know you're not the man for me, right? Well, I guess, you know, if you put it that way, then I'm not. You're 15 years older than me. You have kids that are almost out of school. I could handle one or the other, but both, you're not the man for me. Okay, yeah, I get it. You know, the age thing, I get it. I want somebody who's a couple of years older than me, a guy who's got 25 years left in his career, a guy who wants to have babies. I want to be a mother, but not with you. Well, hey, you know, I'd be careful about ticking all those boxes, but yeah, you know, I get it. I get it, you know. I mean, I have so much fun with you. You make me laugh. And then she went on to say all these wonderful things about me, but basically she was saying, it's not about you, it's about me. And then she came to the, I'm using you. I'm lonely here in Zurich. I broke up with Mark and then I got this great job here and I'm lonely and I have fun with you and I look forward to seeing you, but I can't stand myself. I'm using you. And I said, hey, maybe I'm using you too. Really? She said, her face brightened. Folks, for as long as I have lived, I never thought I could tell a woman that I was using her and that she would like it. So I said, and she said, you're using me? Like, now I knew I could either deny that and be out the door. So I confirmed with decisiveness and conviction. And I also hedged and I said, you know, the way I see it, everybody uses everybody. I mean, if nothing else, you've given me confidence to go ahead with this single life. And I've had a lot of fun with you too. Now, anecdotally, we didn't finish brunch. We left it on the terrace and we went to have dessert. Now, there were no strings attached, no expectations. And expectations, if you think that this wasn't going to go forever, that was the only expectation. So we went on and off for 6 months and we drifted. And at one point we agreed that, you know, we were seeing others. No dramas. Yeah. A couple of years ago, I bumped into her in Zurich and she had gotten married. She had a beautiful son and she was in the midst of a brutal divorce. All those boxes she had ticked, but they were toxic for each other. Now, I gotta say, she looked awesome. She looked like she could use a night out for sushi and dessert, but too much had happened because, you know, use me, baby, use me. Even using with mutual consent has an expiration date. And that was the end.
Wow, Jack, that was a story with a moral. Thank you very much for sharing this one with us. It's food for thought. You know, I'm thinking whether I should leave now 10 minutes for everybody, you know, to reflect on the topic and think how they can use it in their lives. However, luckily we are recording this event, so if anybody would like to reflect on Jack's story, you'll have an opportunity to play it on YouTube afterwards, and you can record for as long as you wish. Now I'm going to introduce our next speaker, our storyteller number 2. So first thing I want to tell you is he was adamant for not being the storyteller number 1. I think to him it brings bad luck in some way. And it's interesting how I got to know him, because I knew him for quite a few years already when I visited the District 59, when it was a whole West of Europe conferences, but we never really spoke. And the first time we spoke was 4 weeks ago when he attended the residential weekend in Prague, where he came with Sabi Sengupta to visit the residential weekend. And I got to know him, and I just felt, that this is the guy. He must be expert on dating. And yes, I found out that later that dating is one of his strengths and also hobbies. Beside that, he also loves debates, and he's a great speaker. And so what he shared as an introduction to his story was that dating in the age of quarantine is impossible. Virtual connections are fun, but not quite the same. He has turned to reminiscing about past experiences. The question is, can he really tell us? With a speech titled, Percy, you'll have to say the speech title yourself. I couldn't find the last one, but please help me give me roaring applause for our speaker number 2, Percy Roland.
Oh, I am unmuted. Sorry. You all confuse me, all these beautiful people on one screen. The new title is Unhappy Beginnings. And I do apologize for the last minute change, because I know that is a nightmare if you are the Toastmaster or the presenter when someone makes last minute changes, but there we go. Do you know this feeling? Your heart is beating. Your mouth is dry. Adrenaline is pumping through your veins. And you wish that the earth would open up and swallow you. This was our first date. We had met in a place of deep connections and intellectual conversations, not intonations. Tinder. She was here visiting a friend from Russia. We exchanged a few lines and then, as one does, arranged a meeting. We met on a street corner. Classic. I saw her first, dressed all in blue. Blue sweater, blue jeans, blue shoes. The only thing that wasn't blue about her were her eyes. The deepest, most intense green I had ever seen. We said an awkward hello, and I suggested to go around the corner to my favorite cafe. Now, I'm not sure how many of you have made these kind of first date experiences, especially the ones that haven't grown naturally, like boy meets girl, there's a spark, and then things grow from there. This is an arranged meeting. The 21st century's answer to arranged marriage. It is almost like a job interview. You both know what you're there for, except you really don't. You actually have no idea what the other person's interpretation is of this situation. So you tiptoe your way around the conversation. It is like a tango in a minefield. And it is very, very difficult for any spark to grow in that situation. Now, considering that, we were doing well. Slowly, we found common ground. Things we had in common. Favorite city, Budapest. That was before I visited Prague. Music, jazz, art. Names that probably don't mean much to other people, but meant a lot to the two of us. She had worked with Ennio Morricone, the man who wrote the music from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I was impressed. I was in awe. But there was no spark. Still, it was fun. A conversation slowly developed and got more fluent. And as we finished our coffees, we decided that maybe we could take this conversation not to a next level, but a next place. I ordered the bill. And the first extraordinary thing happened. she reached for her purse. A Russian girl on a first date reaching for her purse? Is that a very good sign or a very bad one? Of course, I brushed her aside. Honey, this is on me. Nonchalantly, I reached for my wallet and opened it. To this day, I have no idea how it happened. But as I opened my wallet, something fell out. It wasn't money. It wasn't a business card. It was one of these. Have you ever had that feeling? Your heart is beating, your mouth is dry, and you want the earth to open up and swallow you. It lasted a split second. It lasted an eternity. Suddenly, from behind me, an arm shot forward. My arm quickly removed the evidence. Slowly, I raised my eyes to look at her face. I'm not sure what I expected. Disgust, anger, shock, amusement. Her face was a mask. No sign of expression whatsoever, except one impossibly raised eyebrow. I paid the bill, left the table with her, expected her to ask me to call a taxi. Instead, she said something unexpected. Where do we go next? Now, this was not the where do we go next that could follow that kind of situation. It was 7 p.m. and we'd only just had a coffee and there was no spark. So we went to one of my favorite wine bars. We had a glass of wine and two, and slowly we forgot about the tension and there still was no spark, but we relaxed. We had a wonderful time. And at the end of it, around midnight, when I dropped her off at her home, I had actually forgotten about what had happened. I asked her, will I see you again? And for the first time since we met, she spoke in a strong Russian accent. Probably. Now, I could leave the story there and keep you guessing about what happened afterwards, or whether anything happened afterwards. But the thing is, the story doesn't end here. There's an epilogue, because we did meet again. And we had more wonderful conversations. And we met again and again. And very slowly, the more things we found in common about each other, the more often we met, the ice began to melt and a spark began to develop. Until a few weeks after we first met, we found ourselves on her terrace under a full moon, dancing to bossa nova. It was cold, it was December. We danced with our hands in our coat pockets. And slowly, our souls met, our bodies met, our lips met. And I don't need to tell you where this went. Away from the terrace, into the bedroom, into the living room, onto the sofa, and after a reasonable amount of time of mainly taking each other's clothes off, it was about to progress somewhere else. And this is where she asked that question that women sometimes ask in a situation like that. Did you bring any... Nonchalantly, I reached for my wallet. Of course. It was empty. Jacket pocket. It was empty. Jeans, no, not wearing any. Have you had that feeling? When your heart is beating, your mouth is dry, adrenaline is pumping through your veins, and you haven't got any clothes on. And you wish the earth would open up and swallow you. I hardly dared to look across the room and see her reaction. Her face was a mask, except for that one raised eyebrow. "Well," she said, "I must say, you were better prepared the first time." Now, I could leave it here again, but the thing is, the story still doesn't end here. Because believe it or not, out of these strange beginnings grew a beautiful love story that lasted for over a year. And I feel that, like all good stories, it has taught me a lesson. Or maybe in this case, as we're Toastmasters, we like the rule of three lessons. The first, be careful whenever you open your wallet, because you never know what might fall out of it. The second, no matter what you're doing in your life or who you might be doing with, be prepared. And the third, the most important of all, don't let early obstacles deter you, because sometimes happy endings grow out of the most unhappy beginnings.
Well, Percy, you certainly didn't disappoint. I expected to learn something useful from your speech or from your story, and I certainly did. There's a couple of points I need to follow up on. For example, what exactly is the reasonable amount of time for taking each other's clothes off? Because I'd really like to get this one on the benchmark.
That depends entirely on the situation.
Great.
It's not a Toastmasters contest and there's no timer.
Right.
And you don't get disqualified.
Okay, thank you. To all of you in the audience, what we will do afterwards, after the prepared speakers finish, after this part finishes, we'll have a little Q&A session. So in case you have any questions you would like to ask the speakers, try to remember them because you'll have a chance to ask them afterward. Now, let me welcome the next storyteller, which is actually the gentleman who told me how this kind of events should be organized, a storytelling event mastermind. I met him for the first time about 4 years ago. It was the time when I was visiting Poland about 6 times every year. I was learning Polish and visiting all Polish Toastmasters events because the Polish Toastmasters were always a bit advanced than the Czech Toastmasters. And so they gave a lot of inspiration. And I feel like I was able to watch his progress, on the speaking track from a really enthusiastic, but maybe not that experienced Toastmaster toward a proficient keynote speaker and winner of various contests. It's also, I was quite surprised when he shared with me his view on dating. And he actually says that he doesn't know that much about dating. And he's lucky he found a wife. So I was curious, what the story behind that is. And today he's actually going to share with us the story just about that. So with the story title, Long Way Home, help me welcome Zain Abidin.
Thank you, Lucas. Winston Churchill once said, "My most brilliant achievement was my ability to convince my wife to marry me." Now, about 6 months ago, I also got married, and I could not be happier. And I know that because I asked my wife. Now, this was a very painful and long way home. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you see, I come from a different part of the world. In our world, instead of 2 people going on a date, it's actually 2 families that go on a date. It's called arranged marriage. And if these 2 families get along well, the 2 people have no choice but to get married to each other. And this has been going on for generations. My father met his wife through arranged marriage. My grandfather met both his wives through arranged marriage. And my great-grandfather met all 4 of his wives through arranged marriage. So 10 years ago, I get a call from my mother. "Zain, we have found a wife for you." "Mom, just one? Grandpa got 2. son, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. You know what, mother? I think you are right. This is 21st century. I should be able to find my wife by myself. Good luck, son. But remember, even your father couldn't do it. So a few weeks later, I'm sitting in a cafeteria, and there she was, the mother of my future children. Long black hair, brown eyes, and she walked as if she owned the place. I fell in love. So I decided to ask her out. Now, this is what I wanted to say to her. Hi, I'm Zain. Would you like to go for a date with me? This is what came out of my mouth. Hi, I'm Date. Would you like to go for a Zain with me? Oh my God, that was so horrible. I'm so bad at it. What have I gotten myself into? How am I ever going to find a wife like this? Ladies and gentlemen, I tried and I failed. And I tried some more and I failed some more until I realized the problem was not me. The problem was the girls. You see, they had no incentive to go on a date with me because they knew their parents are going to find their husbands for them. So my solution, let's go to Europe, the land of romantic stories. So 7 years ago, I come to Poland. Guess what? It was not the girls. The problem was me. I was so bad at it. How could I not be? None of my ancestors ever had to do this. The last straw came about 3 years ago. I was volunteering for an organization and was about to train a bunch of high school students. As I reached the venue, there she was, mother of my future children. Long black hair, blue eyes, and she walked as if she owned the place. Her name was Sonia. Short little girl comes to me and says, Zain, have you done this training before? No, this is my first time. Okay, no worries. Just follow my lead. And for the next 3 hours, she just bossed me around in front of all those kids. And I loved it. I loved it. This is the girl. She is the one. I fell in love. So I asked her out. She said, no. I was lost. I was desperate. I was broken. And I wanted to do the one thing every broken man does. Call my mom and ask her to find me a wife. But before I could do that, a friend told me, Zain, there is this therapy group. Just go there, they can solve any problem. Toastmasters. I come to my Toastmasters meeting, I'm giving an improvised speech, and who do I see in the audience? Of course, Sonia, the same girl who was bossing me around a few months earlier. She was still not impressed. So I thought, I will get better. I gave speeches week in, week out. I did get better. Made people laugh, made people cry. Mostly, I made them fall asleep. She was still not impressed. A year into Toastmasters, I became our club president. The next day, she calls me for a date. Who's the boss now, huh? It's still her. Still her. Couple of years of a roller coaster ride. Last August, we got married. My most brilliant achievement, my long way home. You see, all those years ago, I could have said yes to my mother. I could have taken the easy way, the short way. But I would have missed out on so much. I would have missed out on all the adventures that made me who I am. I would have missed out on meeting Sonia, the love of my life, makes me better every single day. And our future kids, they would have missed out on this story of how I met your mother. Now we all get this choice to take the short way home or the long way home. And in my view, sometimes it's worth taking the long way home.
Wow. What a story. Now, I'm even more curious to hear your wife's version of the story, because your wife is also a Toastmaster, right? Can you not give it up? Yeah. Okay, I think it'd be very, very interesting to hear her version of the story in an open mic. Sonia, you are invited. I would also like to thank you, Zain. If only I knew you when I was 15, because when I was 15, I was very desperate about these topics. And what I did, I went to my grandmother for advice. But if I knew I could ask my mom to get me a wife, my life, could have been so much easier. Well, you live, you learn. Our speaker number 4 is a person who I know very well, and is also the person who was one of the drivers behind this event, as I mentioned in the story in the very beginning. And what I also know about her, that she's the kind of woman who's a little bit like a hurricane. So I'm really curious to hear about her dating experience and what her view on that's going to be. With the title Story Within a Story, please help me welcome Alena Huberova.
Hurricane. Lukas, what do you mean by hurricane? Well, anyway. So my friends, I have this friend. And look, he's a dear friend and I love him, but I love him from a distance. And I'm talking distance, like, a few 100 kilometers, okay? Because every time I see my friend, I wonder how we became friends in the first place. His name is Ladja, he's Czech, and we met 10 years ago in Indonesia, and we traveled for a while together. And as we were traveling, everyone thought that we were a couple after being married 30 years, together, because we would just argue all the time. We argued about pretty much anything, but the thing that we most argue about was relationships, okay? Now, my friend thinks of me that I am a complete nutcase, living on cloud 9. And quite honestly, I'm not quite sure why. I suspect that it may have something to do with my checklist. Ladies who you're watching, the checklist that we have for the perfect guy, right? Because since I shared my check with him, he keeps laughing at me. So anyway, since the last 3 years, he's been living in Sri Lanka. And so I've been receiving these emails from him with different updates, but always with the same PS. Alena, you have to come, huh? Because he is right here waiting for you, your perfect partner. And then he attaches a picture of a giant mono lizard or a crocodile or something of that sort. So that is my friend. So my friends, last December, I decided I'm going to pay him a visit in Sri Lanka. Wow. When I reached his place, I was amazed. He built this amazing beach resort, basically in the middle of nowhere. And it really is so lovely. Now, the only downside to it is that it's full of Czechs. Yeah, he's Czech and he attracts all these Czech clients. So I spent my first week in the resort, just hanging by the beach and enjoying it. And then the following 2 weeks, I was traveling around Sri Lanka and I did the whole package. Yeah, I not the package, I traveled alone, but I hiked in the mountains and I climbed giant Buddhas and I saw temples. It was just amazing. And on my last week in Sri Lanka, I headed back to my friend's resort, to Ladja's resort, yeah. And one afternoon, I'm sitting in the dining area, I'm next to the pool, and I'm having a lovely lunch, talking to the hotel guests. Meanwhile, about 200 kilometers away, an Englishman gets off a plane in Colombo at the airport, and he's thinking, so What am I going to do? You know, it's not his first time in Sri Lanka, and this time he really wants to do something different. He wants to experience the real stuff. So he decides to bike around Sri Lanka. 6 days later, it's the afternoon, one day before my departure from Sri Lanka. And I'm just lying by the pool and my heart is pounding because I'm just finishing this incredible detective novel. Meanwhile, the Englishman is riding his bicycle and he is like bumping along a rough gravel path, and he's not quite sure he's on the right path, so he's checking his navigation. And as he does so, his bike hits a pothole and it's a disaster. His iPhone just flies away and he almost crashes. And then he gets this really spooky feeling. And a crazy thought pops into his head. Today, I'm going to meet someone special. And look, my friends, as a medical doctor with a very scientific mind, he doesn't believe any of this BS about premonitions and fate. No, it's all ridiculous. But when he reaches the place, he very quickly washes best shirt and he leaves it outside to dry in the sun because, hey, you know, if this ridiculously absurd idea was true, I might as well make a great first impression, okay? So it's my last night in this remote beach resort, and I'm sitting at a table. It's a big, long table, and I'm sitting with all the Czechs, yeah? And we're chatting and laughing, and then we're seeing a person approaching. Oh, it's a guy. And you know, you could not quite ignore him because he had this very compelling presence, as we Toastmasters would say. And he was wearing a snow white shirt. And we were like, you know, we all looked a bit, because Sri Lanka is not exactly the most clean place on earth. And there he was with this amazing white shirt. And Laja, my friend, he shouts across the table, you know, this guy arrived to the hotel this afternoon on a bike. And we're like, what? On a bicycle? How did that happen? You know, does he carry a washing machine and an iron on his bike? And we were laughing like crazy. And then Laja turns to me and he says, Alena, you know, he's English. Go and entertain him, because if we have to entertain him with our English, it's not gonna work very well. So I turn my head to look at the Englishman and our eyes meet because he's already looking at me smiling. And I'm like, oh yeah, oh, womanizer. He will have to wait. So I continue to sit at the table with the Czechs, but honestly, I didn't keep him waiting for too long because I was a bit bored. And I thought, all right, I might as well change scenery. So I turned and I headed for the table of the Englishman. And I'm greeted with, oh, hello. Oh, please sit down. Would you like a drink? And I'm like, I knew it. A womanizer. And in addition, he's English, you know, give him 20 minutes and he's gonna be drunk. So I sat down reluctantly and I say, so apparently you arrived on a bicycle. Well, that's very interesting. Tell me more. And he starts talking and we talk and I talk and he talks and we laugh, and before we know it, the lights go off and Ladia comes to say goodnight and we are left in the darkness. And I'm like, oh, you know, I'm feeling very unsettled because, you know, a womanizer in the darkness. So I say, well, it's a bit late, so I shall go. Good night. I guess I'll see you at breakfast. And as I was heading for my bungalow, I thought, he's quite lovely. Well, anyway, the next morning, I'm sitting at a breakfast table, and not before long, the Englishman shows up and he asked to join me at my table. And I'm like, all right. And, we start talking, and he's talking, and I'm talking, and we're laughing. And as I'm looking at him, something pops up into my mind. Guess what? My checklist. And I find myself checking the boxes or ticking the boxes, whatever the word is. Confident, intelligent, witty, great listener, outspoken, passionate, emotional. I'm like, And then, time to say goodbye because it's my last day in Sri Lanka. So I'm thinking, what a shame. But I'm not going to give him my number, because, if he asks, I'll think about it. And this Englishman must have read my mind, because he says, so Alena, would you like to give me your number? Because, we can stay in touch. And with that, he gives me a hug and he disappears. My friends, this was on 15th of January, 2020. Fast forwarding 2 months. I'm sitting in Prague, writing an email to my friend, and I'm adding a little PS. Láďa, do you remember the Englishman? The guy who turned up at your hotel resort on a bike? Well, he must have fallen in love with Prague, because he'd already been here twice, and he's coming again the next weekend. So, friends, the name of the Englishman is Christoph. And when he asked me to join this call with us tonight, I gave him a resolute no. The fact that he is on this call with us tonight just shows you how malleable I am. So this is how our story progressed thus far. And I don't know where it's heading, and I don't know how it's going to end, but I would say that one thing is clear. My friend was right. Either I am a complete nutcase living on cloud 9, or the perfect guy for me was actually, waiting for me there in the remote beach resort. So there you go. That's my story.
Okay, so I think virtual fist bump to Christopher. Welcome to the call. Hope you enjoyed yourself. Thank you, Alena, very much for sharing this story. I think the current travel restrict situation adds maybe some layers of excitement onto that. And yeah, good luck with cloud number 9 and all these things. We continue with our last prepared speaker. And I know her because she got really famous in when District 95 was still the eastern, the northern and eastern half of Europe, because she was a district winner. And she's quite interesting. Maybe if Alena is a hurricane, the next speaker is a tornado. And how she was thinking of like arranging the introduction for the space. So let me share Let me share a couple of lines to lead you into the story. When life gives you lemons, she asked herself, why am I attracting the same fruit all over again? In his harrowing tale of attraction, desire, and ignorance, Aleksandra will tell you how the coronavirus helped her confront the demons of her past love life. With a story titled Love in the Time of Plague, help me welcome Aleksandra Lewandowska.
It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single speaker with a writer's block must be in want of a failed romance. If a speech is to be moving, it needs to be full of intense emotions, conflict, drama, and passionate love. Everything my life is not. But as the folk wisdom says, if you can't have what you want, you gotta want what you want. I know that what I've just said doesn't make any sense, but love is not sensible. Love does not ask why. Love asks, why not? That's the question I've been asked many times. Being a person interested in self-growth, I've always had the soft spot for men who were out of my comfort zone. Whenever I met somebody weird, eccentric, or just plain irrational, I would say to myself, hey, why not? I was always drawn to these men who were like onions. I peeled off layer after layer looking for substance, but the only substance I got were the tears that streamed down my cheeks. It's an experience that a sensible person would avoid, but after sitting here so many days, locked down in my flat at the time of the pandemic, I thought, hey, I wouldn't mind a good cry. So I take my mobile phone and I download that infamous app. After 1 minute of touching faces of countless men without any consequence, I find my ideal freak mate. His profile description says, I'm a typical guy from Tinder. I'm immediately attracted because it's so typical. I swipe right and it turns out I'm the typical guy's type. I don't know if it's good. He says, hey, beautiful, what you up to? I say, hey, I'm sitting at home. You? I'm eating a sandwich and I didn't wash my hands. I say, hey, oh, you're living on the edge, I like it. I'm not living on the edge. I'm just not buying in all that fairy tales about the pandemic. Ooh, conspiracy theorist. I met one a few years ago in a bar. He tried to convince me that women descended from a different type of ape. For some reason, I decided I had to prove him wrong, and I engaged with what ended to be a frustrating and pointless fight. And a thought immediately strikes me. Is that what Freud called repetition compulsion? I have a chance to break the cycle. This time I won't lose my cool. This time I'll show him. So I reply, hey, if you are so brave, go to Italy and see for yourself that life is not a fairy tale. Like a classic misogynist, he replies, woman, you don't know what you're talking about. Do you know how many people die from a common flu? I said, I don't know. I'm interested in keeping people alive. I don't care which Excel file they go to after death. This makes him livid. So, you didn't even take the time to check the data, yet you dare to state your opinion? I'm looking at the app and I wonder, am I still on Tinder or is it public TV? And he goes on, oh, that's exactly what the problem with this country is. No independent thought, just repeating mindlessly what you hear in the media. In my heart, I know that's the moment when I need to act. I need to respond differently to make sure the situation is never repeated. Although, truth be told, if it happened again, it would be amusing. So, in my mind, I'm thinking about the best reply. I'm consulting generations of women who thought before me for the right for me to say what I want to say. I see the first woman who went to university telling me, yeah, you can do it. I see Marie Curie, the famous Polish scientist, holding a dangerous substance in one hand and telling me, you go, girl. And I feel the breath of the first woman boxer who just stands there and says, and I suddenly have this brilliant idea, a perfect comeback. But the guy never comes back. His dirty mind and dirty hands disappear in the big gallery of faces that cannot be touched. How many hearts will he touch? I don't know. How many hands will he touch? I hope none. But that evening, he touched my heart in a way nobody did ever before. He may have blocked my account, but thanks to him, I got rid of my writer's block. For I finally understood that when you get rejected by a person you wouldn't like to be with in the first place, don't ask why. Ask yourselves, why not?
Fabulous. Ola, thank you. I think that, you just expanded the audience of the Tinder app by all the writers communities around the world. The instant solution to everyone's writer's block. Thank you very much. And thank you all prepared speakers. I think this was fabulous. Now we have a quick survey, and then we have given opportunity to everyone to ask our prepared speakers a question or two. So we'll have a short Q&A session, and after that we will have the open mic. So if you haven't signed up yet for your open mic, please click, I will share with you the link in the chat, and yeah, sign up. And if you already signed up for the open mic, get ready. I will text you directly in the chat and ask you if we're ready to go. So let me share our survey. There we go. There we go. If everything is going, and yeah, okay. If everything is going well, right now you should see in front of you slide with a question. And you please go to www.menti.com and use the code, which is a new code compared to one which we did before the meeting. So go to menti.com and use code 622061 and provide your answer to the question on the chart. Okay, so I can see there's a couple of people who managed to find a silver lining in this situation and for whom actually dating is easier in the COVID-19 situation. I think this is great. Please, if you can, text over chat to Jenny. She might unmute you and ask you for some dating tips. I believe there might be many people in this meeting who would like to learn some dating tricks under quarantine. So feel free to do that. Jenny is the right person to unmute you. Okay, for most people, this is harder. There's quite a few people who are married or who are married and they're brave enough to confess that. And there are some people who don't think that the questions of the creator of the survey was very smart, and that's okay. I do not take it personally. Okay, I think we're ready for the Q&A session. So thank you for those of you who responded. Now, the next thing, if you feel like asking our speakers a question, please type it in And while you're typing it in, you'll also see the questions from the other people, so you can upvote questions to the other speakers. So if you feel like it, type in a question. And while we are doing that, I will give a special opportunity to Jenny. Jenny, is there a question that you would like to ask any of our speakers?
Hi, no question that comes to my mind right now. I loved all the speakers, so yeah. I'm still processing the stories. They were very interesting, all of them.
Was there any lesson that you managed to take away?
I loved the passion in Aleksandra's story, that like you go for the impossible types. So that's the usual mindset that goes in us. Why not? And I heard it from her, and now I feel like, oh, that's a normal thing. I've been doing it, right?
Uh-huh.
So that's my message that I took.
Yeah, there was certainly a lot of passion. Jenny, maybe now is a good time to undo the host's mute for everyone, because I think it will be easier to see
Everybody.
Upside down.
Oh, please.
That was a mess, but okay.
Right. We have the first question. And that is, Percy, what do you think about differences between European and Russian women? Question for Percy. What do you think about differences between European and Russian women?
Now, I'm just reaching for the bottle because this is a very dangerous question, especially considering the mixed audience we have. Actually, quite seriously, I can't say that there is something you can generalize. For example, I mean, I've only seriously dated one Russian, and she did not fulfill the cliches that people have. There's a very specific cliche that we have here. I live in southern Spain, and we have a very specific type of Russian that is a certain cliche, which, like all cliches, is of course totally wrong, except you meet them all the time. And thankfully, she was quite different from that. But I'd say that overall, you can't put people in boxes or generalize. I mean, there are cultural differences, of course, and there is a certain, I think Eastern European women overall, and especially Russians, have a higher expectation of men, especially in terms of chivalry. And I think in a way that's a good thing. But it also means that you have to be strong sometimes and also be able to say no. And that actually is a good exercise.
Okay, thank you. So quite a profound answer. We have another question, this one for Sonia. I hope that she's close to the mic. Sonia, what is your side of Zain's story? Zain, do we have Sonia close by? Yes.
Yes. Hi, guys. All right, what's my side of the story? I have to say my side of the story is way less dramatic than Zain's side of the story. At that point, by the way, I'm Russian, so I definitely expected certain things like during the dates and so on. He was good in these things. However, there were a couple of other things, like he wouldn't call date a date, or he wouldn't go for a date with me when I would invite him. So I was actually curious, sometimes furious, but still the one who thinks everyone deserves a chance. So I think thanks to both of us being open, we kind of both deserved a chance. And maybe one of the days I will really write a speech about my side of the story, because there is a lot of fun too. It's just not as dramatic as Zain's.
Definitely. If you ever feel like sharing your full 7-minute version of the story, Storytellers Sundays, you are more than invited. Okay, let's see. Let's give 2 more questions before we go for the open mic. Okay, we got one for Percy. We already had Percy. Alena, how do you want the story to finish? 3 upvotes. I'm not sure, who could have asked this question, but Alena, how do you want the story to finish?
I assume that it was a lady asking that question. How do I want the story to finish? I want to just absolutely fully enjoy every single day of the story. And, when I stop enjoying the story, then maybe it's coming to an end. But I just want to take it step by step and fully enjoy every single moment, even in these times where it's a very virtual story.
Right. Still, can be a lot of speech materials, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I got a question. I would let Ola answer this one. Tinder is easier now to chat online, but how to follow up after that? How to meet face to face? I'm sure Ola has a strategy already developed. Ola, this one is for you.
I'm unmuted.
Yes.
You hear me? Yes, of course, I have a reply. If you want to meet face to face after you were talking on Tinder, you need to write it down. You need to ask the person out.
In current situation, how will you do that?
Just like that, and let the rejection part fall on the other person. You ask somebody out on Tinder and they say, no, I cannot go out because it's the quarantine. And it says it's like nothing personal,
Well, okay, but to me, this seems to be the easy way out. But let's imagine you really want to meet that person face to face. How do you make it happen? Or maybe you're straight and you would just not meet them before the quarantine ends. That's also a valid answer.
Well, I have very strong alcohol at home and it's a great disinfectant.
Good answer. Okay.
So that's what you need to check. You need to ask the person if they got the right tools at home.
Yeah, this is quite fitting my idea of Tinder. So before you meet the person from Tinder, you ask them if they got the right tools at home.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And if they got some alcohol in the wallet.
All right, thank you. I take this one as valid answer. So we got okay, I think I will let Jack, because Jack hasn't answered yet. Jack, why do people consider dating as something for the non-married only? I still date my wife and they are the best dates of my life. Jack, can you answer the question? Why do people consider dating as something for the non-married only?
I think it's a very leading question, but I like it. I think that, we're very busy generally. Thank you, coronavirus, for proving me wrong. But we, in relationships, today, my lifestyle and etc. I think we have to make dates. We have to make dates because, just spontaneity is good. Allow spontaneity, but it doesn't always happen. It doesn't always prove to be opportune either. And, how do I say this? The quality, not quantity. Back in those years, a certain amount of quantity is needed for quality. Come on. And so, making dates, taking time and saying, Saturday we're doing this, or Tuesday night, or not in a command sense, but hey, what do you think about Tuesday? I think it's absolutely necessary, and and that goes for couples. I think it also goes for relationships generally. You know, my daughter and I, we make dates. You know, my son and I, he's a little more difficult. I see him a lot more spontaneously than I see my daughter. She's older and all of that. But people important in my life, got to make dates, got to make dates, got to make it happen. Spontaneity will still happen, but if we're counting on that, relationships are going to drift.
That was food for thought. Okay, well, thank you very much, storytellers, for both for your stories as well as for your quick answers to sometimes tricky questions from the audience. I think now is a good time to move into the open mic part. And we have a few people who answered in the survey that they would like to give a speech in an open mic. And the first one is a gentleman from Vilnius, Lithuania. He's in Toastmasters for almost 4 years. He's the president of English-speaking Toastmasters Club, Confident Voices Vilnius. And his name is Mindaugas so help me welcome with the story title Online Love, our first open mic speaker, Mindaugas. Round of applause.
Thank you very much for your applause. And now it was my decision like to make the story very spontaneous, because it was also a spontaneous decision. So I want to share by my heart my story about online love. So first of all, it was summer, it was evening, and it was very warm evening, and I was laying in bed and I was experiencing loneliness. And probably you know what this loneliness is. You're looking for that person, you're just feeling that you need something more. And during that time, I have decided I need to find love very fast. And the first decision what came to my mind, I'll install the app and find the love. And I thought, maybe I should go with Tinder. No, I will do it differently. I'll choose a different app and I will download it and I will look what would look like. And afterwards I downloaded, I started chatting. And after one day, I picked a girl and we were chatting. And after 3 questions, I was very surprised. There was a spark and we were chatting, we were sharing compliments with each other. Those compliments were like a big text, like a 4 or 5 paragraphs. We were chatting, we were feeling the love. It was all online. I have first time experienced what is the online love. I was like going in the summer near the Baltic Sea, walking around, sharing pictures, sharing my emotions with that special girl. I felt I was in love. I had also 3 days in vacation. I was enjoying that. We were chatting with each other and I felt I'm not alone anymore. I found the love. But you know, also there's one thing I didn't saw her in reality. We were just chatting, like making those texts. And afterwards we realized we need to meet. We need to see how we're making that connection, because it's growing in each day. And that love becomes even bigger. And I was also riding with my bus, going from Palanga to Vilnius. And it was this day when I need to meet that special moment, that special girl. And afterwards, I thought, I need to make something special. So I thought, I know that every girl likes sunrises, and also they like flowers. So I thought, I'll make surprise to her and I'll make a paper flower of the photograph of sunrise. So I thought it's very amazing idea to surprise. I was also like, talk with her. We prepared the meeting to meet in the evening. There was a hot day, like 34 degrees. I had also like prepared that flower, like made it from the photo, and it looked very amazing. I also went to the barber shop. I just prepared my haircut. I also like dressed like a little gentleman. And I thought this would be the amazing moment. Now I'll prepare, I'll handle that flower, we'll meet, and we'll stay with each other for the rest of our lives. And that was a special day when I'm going straight to the spot where we're about to meet. There was 5 minutes left, and I was heading, my heart started bumping. And really, I thought that is the special moment. And when I realized her, she was like a stunning beauty. And afterwards, I saw there was a moment, like I saw at her face, and she was like chewing the gum, like she was doing like that for 5-7 seconds. I thought something is not right. Like I just feeling like the connection that we were like making during all those 3 days is like shrinking. And I thought like, it's like a different person. Like I was like saying hi, and we went to the restaurant. I was like trying to show appreciation. I was making opening questions to her, and like we were chatting with each other, but I felt it was like something different. She were using from 2 to 4 words, and it was like a difficult to make like a sentence, like to understand her really. And I was trying so hard that she will open up, and nothing had happened. But also I have aces in my pocket, had that sunrise flower. And I thought, this is my ace, and I will be a player, and I will go, and I gave her that gift, and maybe I thought, that will be a big surprise. And I gave her a gift. She was happy like for 10 or 15 minutes, but afterward there was also like very bad experience. I just felt I lost connection with the person. Everything that I'm trying to do is getting worse. Like all that connection is getting worse and worse. And afterwards, that we spent it like for 1 hour for that day. And that day felt like I was spending like 3 hours. It was like an intense course when I was trying to open up the person. And after that hour, I felt depleted. And afterwards, that was one of the worst experiences that I found what is the real online love. That there's a real difference between chatting with the person and feeling in love and seeing what he really looks like seeing that person for real, like knowing how she's speaking, like what is her psychology, like what is her reality, what she is living in. And that was the very best lesson. Like I have experienced that online is cool, like we can chat with each other well, but now I'm spending more time with making real connection, because this online love forced me to realize that there's a big difference by knowing the person who is real and knowing the person who's online. There's a big difference.
Right.
Thank you.
Now, Mindaugas, thank you. It's certainly a good learning. I think now we have a lot of opportunities to practice the online part. Let's hope that the world will turn again into the part of, when we'll be able to see people in person. Thank you very much for sharing. We got the next person who signed up for the open mic is, I'm really looking forward to hearing more about the topic, because the speaker, she lives in Munich, Germany. And she is a Toastmaster. She loves telling stories, especially true ones. The title of her story is Computer Dating in 1967. Help me welcome Naomi Susan Isaacs.
Hi, everyone. I bet you think Tinder and all those apps are something new. 1967, I was 24 years old, and this was 2 years before Woodstock and right in the middle of the free love era. I was new in town, Birmingham, England, and I didn't really know anybody except for my roommate. And we got on okay, but I didn't want to date her, and I don't think she wanted to date me. And one day I left the house, and on my doorstep, there was a form. I didn't know what it was, just some paper. So I picked it up, put it inside, went out to work. And when I came back, I looked at it, and it was a form which said, do you want to meet somebody new in your town? I thought, yes, I think I do. It was a form to fill out. It was the very, very first computer dating service in England at the time. I don't know if there were anywhere else. And for 1 guinea, that's £1 and 1 shilling. Shillings, that's the equivalent of Deutschmark, I guess. They don't exist anymore. You could apply for 4 different names of 4 different men, and you would get the telephone number if they had one. Now, in those days, not everyone had a telephone, believe it or not. We had one, but the number was secret. So I filled it out, and my flatmate filled one out as well, because I said, I like dark men. And she said, oh, I like blonde men. So I said, okay, I'll apply for 4 dark men. You can apply for 4 blonde men, and then we can swap and change, see what happens. So after a while, the answers started coming. And I remember the list. I was allowed to fill out what type of man I wanted, what type of woman I thought I was. Well, the first 2 men that turned up at the front door, they had just lied. They had lied about their age. They had lied about their family situation, and I wasn't interested. The third one that turned up was a fun young man. He said, hi, I'm Dave. Are you Naomi? And I said, yeah, come in. These were different times. You could tell the stranger to come in without being scared of being robbed or raped. And as luck would have it, I was in the middle of baking a Christmas cake to take home to my mother at Christmas. Do any of you know what an English Christmas cake is like? It's horribly difficult to stir. It's full of fruit and almost dry. And you have to make it 6 months in advance, because over the time you have to prick it and fill it with alcohol so that you can get drunk on it at Christmas. He came in just in time to help me stir it. So our very first meeting, I asked him if he would mind helping, and he spent the first 15 minutes stirring my Christmas cake. And I thought that was quite a good start. And then we made a date to meet on the next Tuesday. Until recently, I still remembered the date. I don't anymore. And when he left, my flatmate came and said, oh, he's got a red sports car. Wow. And I thought, oh, wow. And I had just bought my very first mini skirts were in, and my tall boots. And I thought I was looking absolutely great. He came to the door, he rang. I rushed out and looked for the red sports car. And there were a row of cars all about the same height, and then there was a gap. And in this gap was the lowest, smallest car I have ever seen. And I couldn't find the door. And he said, oh, there isn't a door. Oh, how do you get into this? He opened the window, and then he opened the roof. And I had to climb in over the side and somehow ease myself into these racing car style seats, you know, where you lie back and wheels out there. I don't know how I managed it in my very first miniskirt. How do you climb over the side but keep your knees together at the same time? Yeah, I can see you laughing all day. It was awful, but I made it. And he got in and he said, oh, well, you've passed the first test. And I thought, ooh, are we being tested here? I don't know whether I like this. But anyway, after a while, we had a good time. We went out for a couple of beers. We came home again. And in those days, we had records. And I put a record on. And in order to do that, I had to turn my back to him because I had to walk across the room. And I heard him say, you will tell me when it's time to go, won't you? I thought, maybe you don't have to go. And I expected when I turned round that he would be sitting there waiting for me with his arms out, and we would fall into each other's arms and kiss for a while, and then gradually, Jack, did you say go for dessert? Yeah. But when I turned around, I found him butt naked sitting in my bed. Yep, God's truth, I swear. And I thought, you know how you have those flashes of instinct and intuition where you know what's going to happen? And I knew I either throw him out right now or I'm stuck with him. 6 months later, or maybe it was 8, we got married. We came to Munich. We stayed married for 16 years. And now, after more than 35 years of divorce, we're still good friends. I was friends with his second wife. I am friends with his third wife. And he's still one of the people that I respect most in all my life. That's it.
What a story. And on the video, I see, a couple of men taking notes about this trick with sitting in a woman's bed. So the women in this meeting, carefully, if you see this happening, it's Naomi giving motivational speeches to young men who are trying to find ways how to improve their dating life. Thanks a lot. That was very educational. Okay. Jenny, is Bobby ready to go? Did you find and unmute Bobby? Right? Okay. So let me introduce our next speaker, apparently whose name is Bobby. And he is from Churchdown, Dublin, which I believe is located in Ireland. And something about him, he's a grandfather, therefore he has experience in romance, which is useful for speeches on dating. And the title of his story is You Remind Me of the Baroque. Please help me welcome our next open mic speaker, Robert Buckley.
Good evening, everybody. I feel a little bit, shall we say, elderly, although after the last charming lady who spoke, I feel that I'm some way connected with that kind of culture. Now, because I'm from Ireland, the 1960s didn't take place really in the 1960s, but there was a kind of a sort of dating culture then. It was known as the dance hall. And the dance halls in Ireland were hosted every weekend by a show band. These were bands which were, in a sense, imitating rock and roll music from America, Elvis and Roy Orbison and people like that. So these show bands would come at the weekend, and all the local young people would go to the local dance hall. Now, these dance halls in many ways got very, very big, and it was a way of young men meeting young women. But if you were to say that this was a very romantic situation, you would have to say it wasn't really. Well, not for me, because I was a very sensitive soul then. So think of me as somebody somewhat at a loss. And this is what you were faced with. The band would start playing, and on either side of the hall were young ladies all lined up. And then on the opposite side were all the men. So this was a rather intimidating situation. So making your way across the dance hall towards a young lady, she could see you come. And because I was probably an extremely shy person, they would, well, by the time I reached them, they would generally reject me. So generally you met a whole evening of rejection. Now, however, if you did meet a lady that you did end up dancing with, it might just be almost accidental that you were. You had to have a kind of chat-up line. Now, this became a kind of cliche where you said to the young lady, "Do you come here often?" And she might respond to you, "No, only when there's a band." Now, how pathetic all this was. My very soul just simply suffered so much with all of this. If you got to a certain state where you could now chat a little more to the young woman, you could then ask her if she would like a lemonade. A lemonade was just a soft drink of the time. This indicated that you were somewhat serious about her then. But I never reached that stage. I never met anybody who was in any way interested in me, nor I in them. Now, by then, it kind of set up yourself a state of mind where you became somewhat cynical about romance. So I started off with changing my chat-up line. So it was out of pure cynicism, I developed this chat-up line so that I would definitely be rejected immediately. When you said to somebody who had, say, a lovely, long, elegant neck, like a swan, you would say to them, "You remind me of the Baroque." Many paintings of ladies in the Baroque era back in the 17th century had lovely, elegant necks. Anyway, one particular time, it happened that I was particularly good as an athlete, and I was voted the top athlete in my club. So I was asked would I come and be given a presentation as the best athlete, and that it would be nice if I had bring a young lady with me. So I went out to the dance hall purely this time to get someone who would come with me to this presentation where I would be given a trophy and all sorts of nice things would be said about me. So I did meet this young woman who was very, very polite. I didn't particularly fancy her, but I didn't know where she lived. I didn't have any car at the time, so on. But anyway, it turned out that she lived about 30 miles away from where the function was to take place. So I had to hire a taxi. Now, a taxi back in the 1960s in rural Ireland were very strange things. Anyway, I did hire the taxi. It cost me a fortune, and I brought the young lady. She was very, very polite. I've since heard that that lady went on to be the mother of 14 children. So I didn't have any of the pleasure of that, but I smile when I hear about it. But just to finish my whole thing on dating, I never dated anybody else after that. But I did go to a dance which had nothing got to do with these show bands long, long time afterwards. And I met this woman whose name I knew. And I said, "Maria, you remind me of the Baroque. And for some reason, that particular chat-up line, she was charmed by it. And I'm still married to Maria, and we are the parents of Ruth and David and 4 wonderful grandchildren. Thank you.
Wow, Bobby. What a story. I lost my words. I lost my words already. I don't know what to say. It was so beautiful. And so
well,
came directly from, I felt it came directly from the heart. Wonderful. And thanks for coming tonight. And thanks for sharing with us. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we have our last open mic speaker. After that, we will leave the meeting open for a couple of chat afterwards. But our last open mic speaker for tonight is a gentleman from Wrocław, Poland, one of my top 3 favorite Polish cities. And what we should know about him, that Zain, our one of our featured speakers, brought him here. And his story has a title, you will gonna love this, The Friend Zone. The Friend Zone. Help me welcome Cyril Jr. Dim.
Okay, I was clapping along with you because I didn't want you to know which one is Cyril, but I realized my name is written there, so it's kind of given away. I have to tell you right now that I have to give this story as sparingly as possible because my girlfriend is watching. I know. This story happened before me and my girlfriend. Actually, it was quite early on in our relationship. I was taking a walk in the city center because I find the city center fascinating. It's beautiful, especially at night, especially in the warmer seasons. And on this particular night, I wasn't doing anything. I was just walking about. And I had this eerie feeling that I was being watched. I'm paranoid. I'm just thinking too much as usual. But before I take this story any further, and I'm looking at all of you right now, could you show by waving your hands if you know what the friend zone is? Just show if, do you know what the friend zone is? Yeah? Okay. For those of you who do not know what the friend zone is, it is that zone in a relationship. It's that bridge between a boy and a girl where the boy, of course, he wants to be more intimate. He probably wants to be the boyfriend, but the girl probably keeps pushing him off, keeping him as a friend. I think of you as a friend or a brother or something like that. Now, normally you'd imagine that people try and avoid the friend zone, because being thrown into the friend zone is a bit, I don't know, shameful, if you'd like to call it that. But this story is not about avoiding the friend zone. No, this story is about applying to be in the friend zone. And I'm about to tell you why. Remember I said I felt I was being watched? I wasn't being paranoid. Because sure enough, right about the time when I want to start going home, these 2 people approach me. A young lad and a lady. Now the lady's got long, wavy hair. She's shorter than me, shorter than the guy. She's short in general. And when she reaches me, the first thing she says is, I've been watching you. I said, I'm sorry, what? He said, yeah, I mean, me and my friend here, we just trying to meet, new people. And we saw you taking a walk. We thought we would just come by and start a conversation. Now, I thought they're just being nice, 2 people just started a conversation because I probably look like a foreigner. I mean, I live in Poland and I'm probably a foreigner. Probabilistically, I'm a foreigner. So I thought they're being hospitable. And they invite me for drinks. And I'm like, you know what? I'd like to go for drinks as well. And so we go for drinks, but as soon as we sit down, the young guy excuses himself. And all of a sudden, here I am, stuck in a conversation with a young lady. And it all makes sense now. This was the plan. The guy was the wingman. The lady was, of course, the main man. And I was the prey. Now, how do I bring up that I have a girlfriend? She wouldn't even let me talk. She just keeps talking and talking and talking. And of course, she can't help it. She has to say, "Can I touch your hair?" At this point, I can't explain how awkward I feel. And I already agreed to sit for drinks, so I'm kind of trapped here until I finish this first drink. And I have to say it now, I am a poor drinker. I can't survive a second glass. I'm struggling with the first one. And right about the time I'm 3/4 through with my glass so I can run away, she's like, "Don't worry, the second one is on me." Now, of course, I can't go home. I could, but I don't want to seem rude. She keeps talking, she keeps asking, I keep talking. And for a moment, it occurs to me what ladies must feel when guys are just trying so hard. And I realize at this moment, I should probably try and throw myself into the friend zone. So I start asking about her career, her hopes for the future and all that. And I start being this super nice, supportive guy, because this is what they tell us in training camp. Don't be a nice guy. Nice guys finish last. So I'm like, if I am the nicest guy I can be for the next hour, she's going to friend zone me for sure. But the nicer I am, the more sparkly her eyes get when she looks at me. And slowly as I speak, you can see the eyes widening, the head tilting. It's creeping me out, but the nicer I am, the more into me she is. Until, of course, the moment comes. There's the awkward silence. She looks me dead in the eye. I'm trying to hide that I'm shivering. And she moves closer. Now, I don't know what to say. It's always been the other way around, you know? I move in, either get slapped or I get a kiss or something. But how do you handle this? And of course, it is in that moment that I care to bring up, hey, I'm not comfortable with this. I don't tell her I have a girlfriend because I don't want her to look for my girlfriend and eliminate the threat, if you know what I'm talking about. In the end, I decide to walk her home, to be a gentleman. And of course, I leave her right outside her door and run home. I make sure she doesn't follow me home, so I don't want her to know where I live. But the strangest thing happens a couple of weeks later, because she texts. She found me on Instagram and she texts. She's like, "I saw you again in the market square with a petite blonde girl." She never responded to any of the explanations I tried to give afterwards. But over a year later, my girlfriend is still alive and well. I was in the friend zone for those 2 weeks. I successfully exited. I am still alive and well. And I realized that the market square was actually her little hunting ground, because it was interesting. She said, "I saw you in the market square." And so what I learned from this and what I leave you with is the friend zone is not always a bad thing. If you learn how to tactfully apply for entry into the friend zone, you never know when you might need it. Thank you.
Cyril, so first of all, eye-opening and educational. I think maybe I imagine that you're doing this speaking quite often. So maybe you do have a trainings that will help men getting into friend zone, because I can imagine there are, many men who have trouble getting there, like you had when you were in the market square and then in the bar.